So Jen, in the beginning, your acknowledgement sections, and you wrote something that very, to me, is very profound because I myself have a daughter. Her name is Charlotte, and when I start reading through your acknowledgments, that's something that a lot of things came through. But I will share what I thought of it. I will share how I receive it. I will share what came out of it. But at this point, I would like you to walk the audience through what is it that came through your mind when you draft this passage. I'm not gonna say what it is. If you already read her book, you know what they are. But I'm gonna have her walk us through a bit about what is it that is so significant on the first acknowledgments that she wrote, which is to her dad.
Great question, babe. So yeah, the beginning of my book, it felt like I needed to start by acknowledging people. And why was that important to me? Well, because we don't take time to see people. And there's a lot of people who are really hurting. And what's so sad and so scary is that you don't know where someone is at in their journey. You don't know what they're facing, you don't know what they're going through in life. And so with my story and what I've been through and the loss of my dad, I know firsthand how someone can be in a really sad and scary space and you don't know it.
Gotcha.
And how important it is to take time to see someone. And so that's why I knew when I started my book, when I started to write the first person that I needed to actually see and acknowledge and speak into for what I saw in him was the one I lost, which is my dad. And I never got that chance to tell him before he passed what he meant to me and what I saw in him and who he was, and to edify that and to speak into that. And so starting out my book, this is what I would have said and wished I could have said to his face.
Got it. Okay, so thank you for sharing that with us and with the audience. So now I'm not gonna read it. I would love for you to read just a few. I would say, you know what? Let's go. Let's go the first page. Actually, I want you to read it. Just read. I wanted to read to the audience the way, like, just picture, like, your dad is right there. He's standing there, right there in front of you. Like, for example, maybe he's standing in his garage ready to fix his car, which is, I heard from you that he also loved to fix car. He's not only just fix car for the family, but he loved to fix car for everybody else too. The neighbor, anybody car broke down, they're like, yeah, call Jen Dad, he'll be there. He'll do it. So I would like you to read this like you are actually speaking to him.
Okay.
Yeah, just like he's right there and he's standing there, and you just like, Dad, and then just read it like he's there. So go ahead.
Happy to. Dad, thank you for who you were. Thank you for showing me what an authentic and passionate love for the Father looks like. You loved him more than anything else in this life. I saw it in how you pursued him, how you dove deep into the scriptures, searching out further context, culture, and history. I'll never forget your hunger for him and the joy that radiated from your entire being the day you called home while touring the Holy Land a few years before your passing.
Okay, I'm just gonna stop you right there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop you right there. So, for just speaking to the audience that haven't read her book, or the audience already read her book, what do you mean when you say you reference quite a bit of him, and you reference that you saw him again? There's quite a bit of him that you reference to. Who is him in here that you were talking about?
Great question. That is absolutely who I'm referring to as our Creator, the one who designed us, created us at the beginning of life.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, here you go. Continue.
So then it goes on to say, you were home then, and you are home now. Thank you for your radical love, not only for me, but for the world. You showed me that we're far more capable of extending our hearts and our hands to our fellow man than we even think we are. Thank you for the gift you gave me of what it looks like to see others, to see beyond ourselves, and how you lived that with every single action that you took.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop you there. So what do you mean by he see other people? Like how can you give us like explanations or maybe like side story or something that is not in the book that how is your dad see other because it looked like you probably got that from him how you see other people how including myself how you see me. So with that being said, like how is your dad, if you could share with us a little bit like how is your dad seeing other people, like walk us through that.
Great observation.
You're gonna start crying and I'm gonna start crying. Okay, no, share. I want because I know it's important. It's this portion of your book at the beginning of your book. It's just so important in so many ways. That's why I know the tears gonna be shed. Everybody gonna start crying. If you don't have a tissue yet, start grabbing. You can call your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you had. Start grabbing tissue, but it's about to get teary eyes very, very soon as we starting. So anyway, so walk us through what do you mean, like how you get that from him in terms like he's, the ability for him to see other people. Like, like me, I see everybody too, but what do you mean? Like walk us into detail. What do you mean by seeing other?
Yeah, it's a great observation, and it's such a beautiful thing about who he was, which is why it makes me cry. It makes me cry because he was never too busy. He was never too busy. Whatever he was doing in life, whatever he was working on, focusing on, he was never too busy for somebody else that had a need. And if that person was in front of him or had come to him, or he was walking in public and they just happened to come up in conversation with him, he was never too busy to take time to actually listen to them and what their need was and then respond or just speak to them. For example, there was a couple in our home church who were missionaries and they were home on furlough, traveling in another state. Their car breaks down, and like you said earlier, everybody knew. Call Jen's dad.
Right.
When you have car trouble. So,
right.
Of course, they call my dad. I don't even know what time of the night it was at that point. And what was his response? His response was, "Where are you? Mm-hmm. I'll be there in such and such a time. Don't go anywhere."
Gotcha.
So he drove down and met them multiple states away and left them with a vehicle. And they were able to continue on with their journey while my dad took care of the car.
Wow. Sound like your dad's such a good person and a great man. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Okay, go ahead and continue.
Keep going.
Yeah, continue. Because it's what she just shared basically is leading to the next thing that she's gonna talk about her dad in the book.
So I said then next, you were and are a true hero to so many. Thank you for your service as a vet, a fireman, an EMT responder, and a father. You were sacrificial, humble, and passionate. A warrior for the hearts and well-being of others. Your legacy lives on, and an entire book could be written about just the way you loved.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. So I'm gonna start asking you questions. So your dad is actually a true hero. What we consider, like, because he looked like he's been in service all his life. Mm-hmm. So what is he a vet? Is he served? Did he serve?
Yeah, he served in Vietnam.
Okay.
He was in the Navy.
Got it. So he served in that time where it's like a chance for him to come home is slim to none.
Yeah.
Got it. What did he do in the Vietnam? Like, what is he like? Is he a mechanic? Did he fix airplane?
Yeah, he actually worked on the big ships.
Okay.
And was a mechanic on the ships, and then progressed into other things because he was very advanced in his skill sets.
Awesome. And then when he get home, I assume he become a fireman.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about those. What it's like to grow up as a dad, as a fireman, and as a dad, as a first responder. What is it like?
Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can always
because every kid's love as just the fire truck come through, be like, hey. Yeah. So talk us through like what it's like.
It really, now that you asked that question, I've never thought about this before, but really his entire life And my entire life as a child was always, who's he helping today?
Mhm.
Is he going to rescue someone in a fire? Is he going to help someone that's had a heart attack? Is he, going and doing something else in our church to help somebody else? Is he going on a mission trip? Really, it was a constant awareness of, he's helping somebody today, I just don't know who it is.
Gotcha. How involved is he in your life and your brother life and everybody life? Besides, I know that he loved to serve. As you can see, he's a vet, and he also, I thank you for his service, of course. And then a first responder when you get home as a first responder, and also a fireman as well, and also mechanic on the side job, and do whatever he can. Like, I think he probably fix more than cars, probably like house breakdown, go fix pipe, you go fix plumber, you name it, you call him. So, what is your relationship like with him growing up?
Yeah.
With your dad? Like, can you share that with us?
I always felt safe around him.
Uh-huh.
Like, I knew I could go anywhere, be in any environment, and I was going to be protected and I was going to be safe. Like, I didn't have to worry about anything going wrong, because if anything did go wrong, it was going to be fine because Dad could take care of it.
Got it. So is that, gotcha. That's awesome. Thank you for that. Now, this might be a little bit tough to ask, but I'm gonna ask anyway. So, what it's like not having him now? What it's like? Because you had him, and you know what it's like, all the same. But what it's like for not having him?
You feel very vulnerable.
Uh-huh.
You feel very vulnerable.
In what way?
Meaning you have to get used. I've had to get used to the fact through the years that there was no one physically to protect me anymore.
Right.
And that's a big reason why my creator did become my protector, and that level of trust grew to such a degree that I did trust him with everything and anything, because there was no one else to be in that role.
Now, you mentioned that, after you don't have him anymore, you turn to the creator. And then from my multiple conversations I have with you, you grew up in church, aren't you? Okay, got it. So then you always know that the creator is always there for you, that Yahweh is always there.
Yeah, it's different though, because I feel like my whole childhood, that's what I grew up learning. I grew up hearing that he was that the creator was that. But it wasn't until I lost my dad that I actually experienced it and truly felt it to the depths that I did, where I could really believe it because I was seeing it.
Right.
And by that I mean, when you go through a loss like that, there's nothing else that happens other than you are so full of sorrow and loss that that first few months I was crying myself to sleep. And so who am I crying to other than my creator?
Right.
So by that happening, that next part of my life really entered into a moment of I'm crying to you now.
Right.
I'm coming to you now with all these tears and this weight and this heaviness every single night. So it forced me into an experience where he then was in that place where I was experiencing him in that role for the first time.
Got it. So I'm gonna dig deeper. I'm gonna dig deeper. I know all of you probably go deeper, Tim. Go deeper. So, okay, I got it. So then you lost your dad, and then if you read the book, you probably find out how she lost her dad. We may or may not touch on it, but we might touch on it later on about how she lost her dad, because that subject itself, it's a big subject itself too. It's what I call, it's very underlying subject that no one really talk about, especially men's, and it's especially men's in service, especially. So we will talk about that a little bit. But so when you lost your dad, and then by the time that you know that now you're gonna cry, instead of crying up the loss of your dad, you're actually crying out to the creator. So walk me through that, because I can say this, I don't believe that all of a sudden you lost your dad and the next day you start crying to the creator, because there has to be a timeline where you continue crying, right? You cry yourself to sleep, and you said you continue crying, but when or how, walk us through that until you finally
Yeah.
realize that, hey, and now I'm no longer crying to my dad. I'm actually crying, or not to my dad or for my dad, but I'm
Yeah.
actually crying to the Creator. Yeah, because of the loss, the grief, and everything. So walk us through that process, or help us understand that, because I can tell you, there's many of us experience that before we get to that point of where, you know what, God is the way, God is the truth, and the life. No one but Him. So there has to be that period of time.
Yeah.
So walk us through that, please.
Great observation.
Yeah. So.
And great question. And you're right. Going through that period after he passed, the first tears, the first heaviness, the first sorrow, and that wasn't short-lived by any means, but those tears were coming from a different place than crying to the Creator. Those tears were just from the loss, and feeling the loss of what I loved,
Right.
and the loss of my father.
Right.
And those tears were intense, and I remember those tears being so overwhelming that like my whole face like just got beet red and raw, and I could like barely open my eyes. Those kinds of tears are different. The lost tears are different than the tears that then connects you to your Creator that you're asking about. So those tears, that's when that's when I
Right.
was further along in processing the loss.
Okay.
And it transitioned into really questions.
Right.
Why did I have to lose him? Why did he have to die?
Right.
Why did he do this?
Right.
So they're even happening now. Those tears are different, and those are tears that you're exclaiming and proclaiming to your Creator through conversation, and crying out to Him for answers, because you don't understand, and you want to understand, and you're feeling so much, and you're not getting to answers.
Got it. So thank you for sharing. So is that safe to say that the first few tears, or few months, or few years, or from the time period that you cried after your dad passed, till the time that you truly discover the another set of tears that you actually cry to the Creator, it's a process.
Absolutely.
It's not something that just happened overnight. It's not something that you could just say, hey, I'm cool now and everything. So during those period of time, if you don't mind sharing with us more into detail, like how did you get there, or how did you manage to get there, or how did you get to that point of crying to the Creator? How do you do it? Is that because I know that like a lot of us, probably some of us still going through therapy, some of us about thinking about going through therapy, some of us looking for help from church, some of us probably looking for help from the internet or the web, whatever that may be, in terms of like counseling, help us through when we talking about experience loss, and this especially in this type of magnitude of losing, like the father, the dad. So walk me through like that actual process of like, how do you get to that point? How do you get there?
Yeah.
Because I know you're still crying about it when you think about it, because you show it, that you start tearing when you talk to him about your dad, and you talk to us about your Creator. You still have shed tears on those. But then now I feel like it's a tear of joy.
Yeah.
Not a tear of sorrow, sadness, or grief, or anger, and bitter, all things. But how do you get there? But I'm not talking about like now. I'm talking about like during those transitions, like who helped you, or what did you do? Who do you seek? How do you seek that? Like how do you how?
Yeah.
So.
And I'm getting teary-eyed now, only from the perspective that your observation is so well said, because something I hadn't thought about until this moment is that in that timing, when you're going through something that intense, you're going through a loss that intense, and by that I mean a loss that there aren't answers always to. Yes, people try to help because they care. We're human. We care about each other, and we want to help when someone's going through a lot. And so people try to help. People try to give answers.
Perfect. Let me stop you there for a second. Before, would you mind sharing how your dad passed?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think this will give a full context what she's about to talk about, because all of us experience loss in different magnitude. but the kind of loss that she's talking about is something that you would not think of or imagine that would happen to someone you love, because we're not talking about just like, oh yeah, her dad did not just one day pack up and say, see you guys later. Oh, none of those. So how did your dad pass? How did he pass?
Yeah. So my dad actually passed away from suicide.
Like how?
Yeah, he killed himself. He shot himself in the head.
So yeah, the reason I asked her this question, I know is very challenging for her to answer, is that she lost her dad. You know, she's off her tonal level. She lost her dad due suicide, and the suicide is not talking about jumping off the bridge, taking medications, or do whatever things that you normally think is. He actually basically shot himself for the man that gave his life
Yeah.
to to like basically went overseas Vietnam to try to help other country, set people freedom, all those things, and got home and helped everybody else and everything you possible can, and also become a fireman. And always the same thing, go save other people and everything, have a beautiful family, have beautiful daughter, beautiful son, and beautiful wife, and everything you possible can. And he shot himself with a gun that he helped save other. So I just want to make that, for everyone before now you go ahead and talk about that piece about
Thank
who does
you.
it help you and all those things.
You made that perfectly clear.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of people want to help in a situation like that because we don't know what to do. We don't know what to say. And so you end up in a space where you see people trying to help. You see, therapists, counselors trying to help. But at the end of the day, no one has the answers you're seeking. Why? Because you don't know why he did it. You don't know what he was going through. They're gone. You can't get those answers. And so you end up in a space where no matter what anybody else says, anyone that loves you, no matter what they say, they can't give you the answer you're looking for. The answers you're looking for.
Right.
Doesn't matter who it is, they can't give it to you.
Right.
So you end up in a space and in a place where no one has the answers. And you're hurting so deeply that it forces you to go to a place where maybe he has the answers that nobody else has. And so you cry out to him because you have a hope that he has the answers that nobody else does.
Right.
And that's how I ended up in a place where I was going to him, because no matter what anybody else said, it wasn't, the answers weren't there.
Right. So I know it's gonna be another deep questions that I'm asking. I'm like digging because
some tissue.
that's okay. Besides using hand and everything, right? Makeup, whatever that
You
means.
get to wipe my face now.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask this too. Timeline.
Yeah.
Give us a approximately timeline. The reason I ask about timeline is because it's so important. Because I know a lot of our audience, and then some of you probably currently experiencing that, or some of you know somebody that going through that as well. That they seek answer, they seek help, everything, and then it's kind of give us an idea. Is that take how many years? I don't think it happened overnight. I don't think all of a sudden you wake up a week later or 2-3 weeks later. I know you grew up as a believer. I know you went to church. You grew up doing a lot of things that you grew with churches and everything. So there's your dad and your family. But I don't think that, I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong that, oh yeah, Jen, after 3 months, you're like, okay, I'm good. But what is that? You don't have to go into detail with us, but give us an idea of like how long did it take for you to know. I don't think you will ever heal because the scar, but that scar is there because it gets you closer to our Creator. And also as a scar that in your heart that I know that your Creator now is filled that for you. So with that being said, and how long for you, or the time frame that is finally you realize that, you know what, I'm starting to get better. I'm coming out what I call a foxhole. If you know what that is, Google it. It's called a foxhole because Jen, when you mentioned when you were in that space, like for us, a lot of us, there's a easy terminology to understand. We call it foxhole, and we know that in foxholes, only God exists. No one else exists. Only God exists in that foxhole because He's the only one that can take you out from that foxhole. And then, so with that being said, like how long did it take you
Yeah.
for you to, like, God start to, He's already there from the beginning, but like you feel that He's pulling you, or you feel you, not like He's pulling you, it's more like you accept His help of getting you out from that fox. So like you completely like open up and accept His help versus like He's there, like He's tried to yank you and pull you out of a foxhole because you are His daughter. But then when do you finally realize, or when do you accept His help and say, slowly let Him pull you out from that fox? So how long did it take? What is the time period, like a year, 2, 3 years, or what is that?
Great question. And you know what is crazy is that I feel like it is a lifelong process. And what I can tell you is that with it being a lifelong process, I don't want you to lose hope by that statement. What I want to say is it is a journey with Him. And so, when you're in that first moment and it's that dark, you're in that foxhole and all you can see is darkness. What can be that first glimmer of light and that first glimmer of hope comes from that crying out to Him. And what happens is in that moment, all you're doing is saying, I'm not getting help anywhere else that in the area that I'm looking for it. So I'm coming to you, and I'm willing to say, here, I'm going to give this to you. And what happens in exchange is an exchange.
Got it.
So in that moment of saying, I'm going to give this to you, and I'm crying out to you, what happens in return? He gives you something.
Got it.
That's that first little light, that first glimmer that starts shining in that foxhole for you. Is it like daylight, sunshine all the time now? No, sometimes it's a tiny little spark that keeps you looking for more light, looking for more answers. And so then you start to realize over time, the more I come to Him, the more I give to Him, the more He's able to then give me more light into the darkness that I'm in right now, so that eventually you do climb out. Eventually it gets so overwhelmingly light and bright that you don't even see the darkness anymore. But it's a process of like going through a tunnel. When you're in a tunnel and it's completely dark, sometimes you can see the other end and the other opening, but sometimes you can't. It takes time. You got to continue walking forward and continue walking towards that light as it appears. And as that light appears, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The more you walk forward and the more you want that light, but you have to be willing to say, I need help. You have to be willing to say, I'm bringing this to you because I don't know what to do. Help me.
Got it. So, thank you for sharing that with us. And then, so I have now the next questions I have for you is this: like, how do you know that it was Him who wanted to help you? It was our Creator that wanted to help. How do you know? How do you discover it? How do you find that? Because sometimes when we're in that foxhole, there's so many helping hands, but how do you know it's His hand? How do you identify, or how do you come about, oh yeah, this is His hand, this is His light versus something else? Because I can, I probably assure that there's so many hands that want to help you. There's so many hands, so many lights that you can see because you were in that foxhole. But then how do you know that it's His hand? How do you know that it was His light? How? Can you share that with us a little bit? Like, how do you know? How do you come to know? How do you come finding that? Which is something you speak throughout your book about finding His voice. So like, how do you find His voice in that foxhole? How do you find when there's so many noise coming in your way because you just lost somebody that you love dearly, which is your dad, to suicide by gunshot. So
what's really beautiful about that question is that it reminds me of a passage that says that He is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. And something that is so comforting to me is that when you're in that foxhole, you don't have to find Him. He will find you, because that's His heart for you. Does that mean that you've gotta acknowledge and realize, oh my gosh, I think this is him? Yeah.
Right.
But at the same token, he will find you, and I can tell you when that happened for me. I think it was like a couple days after he passed, or even it might have been the first day. It was somewhere in the first few days. As I'm in so much grief and so much sorrow, and I can't stop crying, I heard just the softest of whispers in my spirit, and it was the phrase, "We got this, Jen, you and me." And why did he say that to me? And why did that phrase even hit my spirit? Because I was so afraid. I was so afraid of having to go through life without my dad. I was having all these visions of the future without him in it, and it was terrifying me.
Right.
And all of a sudden, this phrase hits my spirit.
Right.
We got this, Jen.
Right.
You and me. And I knew, there was no doubt in my mind in that moment
Right.
that was my creator.
Right.
And when that happens, there is no doubt. You just know it's him,
Right.
like I did.
So, well, we all tear up. I guess you all tear up too. But now, how old were you when
I
you
was
passed?
21.
Yeah, so she's 21. So because sometimes sometimes our parents or whoever our loved one pass away. Sometimes we young, or be like maybe teen, or maybe like 4, 5, 6, 7, or 10 years old. But for Jen, she was 21 when her dad passed away, and when that happened, is it when what she just said about, oh man, she was so scared of going through life without him being there. Maybe she might thinking about, hey, what happened if I got married? No one's gonna walk me down the house, because you're gonna discover more in her book, like how just that it's for me when I start reading through her book, what happened to her dad when he commits suicide, or we don't know if he chose that or something that had happened. We had no idea, just like she said, that was so many unanswered. That's why no one can help her, but only our creator can give her that answer, because she can't just ask her dad and say, hey dad, why you did what you did. She can't, because he's already gone. And then with those happen, I have, by reading this book, I have a feeling, or I believe that that's almost set off the course of her life, of how from her 21, 22, turn 23, 24, 25, maybe go into her 30s, and maybe close to going into your 40 as well. So I think that set up the course of her life, of like continue to seek him, or finding his voice, or what that may be. So that's something that I am excited to share with you all more to come, because it's all in this book. There's more. And Jen, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your heart out with us, and and then give us a glimpse into more detail, or refined detail, what just the first sections that you wrote to your dad, because it's very interesting to me. What grabbed my attention of your book was the moment I flip up and I look at the acknowledgement, and you talk about your dad, and it come to find out that your dad passed by suicide. And then I'm like, oh, that's even more, and I want to know more, and I want you to share with the audience more. That's why this happened, and we're gonna continue doing this with Jen. As more episodes to come, where I'm gonna continue to have her read the book per sections to us, to all of us, and then I'm gonna be the one asking the questions. But if you already read her book and you want to shoot her questions about different chapter, just do it in the comment or in the section. Just say, hey, on this chapter, there's this passage that you said, can you go into detail for us? More than welcome to. So I'm going to track it, I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to bring it up when that chapter happened, when we get to that chapter. So we're going to talk about it. So Jen, again, thank you for that. So some of you may know, some of you may not know, this is my book. I bought this, and the reason I gave this book back to Jen, because I read it and I wrote this. So I'm gonna read this to her. So I'm a dad. Like I said, I have a daughter. Her name is Charlotte. I have a son too, Ethan. But Charlotte is 5 years old. So when I read the first part, when she read, and when the letter, I called the letter to her dad, that her dad didn't get to read it. But since I'm a dad, I put myself in a position where what if Charlotte wrote this letter to me, how would I respond to it? And this is how I respond to the letter. And I shared this with Jen, like, hey Jen, this is how your dad would want to respond to these sections. And here it goes. From Dad, Jen, thank you for who you are, who you were, who you are, and who you will be. I'm so sorry for leaving you unexpectedly. I need a minute. I need a minute. I'm so sorry for leaving you unexpectedly, which left you with so many unanswered questions. I'm so sorry for allowing you to go through life without me. I had missed so many things in your life. Until today, I still have so many regrets. However, I'm grateful that you have found him, your true father that have always been there for you. He will never leave you or and forsaking you. He was there, he is there, and will always be there forever for you. Amen. Well, you have any last minute thought to share with the audience or anything you want to say?
Yeah. I just want to say first, thank you for your honor in caring enough to not only read my book, but speak from the heart of a father.
Right.
You're an amazing father,
Thank you.
and that's why you had the heart to even see what was happening in the dynamics of this beginning. And it's why you also see people and value that. And I think that our audience and anyone listening is going to be so blessed as well by your heart to see them just as much as you know I have the heart for the same. So thank you for your honor and gift of taking time to sit down today and dive into more context of the book and hear more stories about what happened and who my dad was and who I am.
Awesome. Well, guys, that's the last word from Jen. So anyway, so if you want to get a copy for your friends or your family member, you can find it in Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
Mm-hmm.
They have in Walmart too. Just type in that Jen Hurling or Finding His Voice. So just read up on it and then join us with the journey, her journey, walking us through the book itself. And then if you already have a copy, perfect. If you would like to send us any more questions or anything you want me to ask her in the next episode, please feel free to do so. Comment below or tag or whatever, we're going to put that out. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great one. See ya.